Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. They lie in quiet corners, gathering dust until the right moment arrives. You feel a pull towards them, a strange sort of recognition, as if you've merely misplaced them until now. It is this feeling that leads you down the narrow aisles of the forgotten, where time seems to pool like still water. It is this feeling that draws your eye to a shape half hidden beneath a draped cloth, humming faintly with an energy that isn't quite silent. This hour, we explore what happens when you bring that waiting thing home. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now let's begin, but remember, once the story starts, something always follows. You find it tucked away in the deepest corner of the antique shop, amidst a chaotic jumble of forgotten furniture and musty textiles. It sits on a low shelf, heavy and imposing, crafted from dark wood that feels cool beneath your fingertips. It is an old radio, certainly, archaic in its design, but there is something else about it. Something that hums just beneath the surface of your awareness. The brass dials are tarnished but intricate, and the carvings on the wood frame are not simple patterns, but tightly woven knots and symbols that seem to writhe slightly if you look away too quickly. The air around it feels still, holding a faint, almost imperceptible hum of static that seems to emanate from within its silent grill, even when it isn't plugged in. He feels a peculiar magnetism, a compulsion that overrides the practical voice, suggesting it's just junk. It is heavy in your arms as you carry it out, a significant weight, not just of age, but of something more. Bringing it home to your quiet space, where the only sounds are the creaks of the old floorboards and the distant sigh of the wind outside, the radio takes center stage. You spend hours cleaning the dust from its surface, tracing the strange carvings, marveling at the craftsmanship of a bygone era. You notice the dial can apparently tune beyond the familiar AM and FM bands, marked with illegible symbols and distances that don't align with earthly geography. It is a charming relic, you tell yourself, a unique piece with character. Yet beneath the fascination, a subtle unease begins to seed itself. The faint hum of static persists, a low, insistent thrum in the periphery of sound. It is the kind of noise you learn to filter out, but with this radio, it feels different. It isn't just random electronic noise. The first sign something is truly wrong isn't a voice or a message breaking through the hum. It is the quality of the static itself. It shifts, deepening in pitch and volume, becoming dense, purposeful, as if it is arranging itself, forming an invisible wall of sound. You watch, rooted in place, as the static seems to pulse, a subtle throb that corresponds, you realize with a growing chill, to a slight distortion in the light around the radio. The air shimmers, warps, just at the edge of your vision, like heat haze rising from asphalt on a scorching day, but silent and cold. He blinks, shakes his head, trying to dismiss it as tired eyes or a trick of the low light. But the feeling persists, a psychological fracture opening between what you know to be real, old electronics make static, and what this object seems to be, something that bends the fundamental rules of the world around it. Curiosity battles a nascent dread, a chilling understanding that this is not merely an old radio, but fundamentally other. The static is not just noise, it is a presence. It is a veil pulled back, revealing something that should remain hidden. What does the static conceal? Or perhaps, what is it trying to show? The dial spins, catching a frequency not marked on any guide. It's just static at first, the familiar hiss and pop of radio interference. But then, beneath the noise, something coalesces. It isn't music or news, not really. Fragmented words surface, drifting like debris in a storm of sound. Whispers brush past, too quick to grasp fully, sometimes just a breathy consonant or a trailing vowel. Names appear, often unfamiliar, sometimes startlingly clear, before being swallowed by the static's hungry surge. Dates follow, specific years, months, days, detached from context, hanging in the air like forgotten anniversaries. At first, you tell yourself it's just the nature of shortwave, the ghosts of distant broadcasts bleeding through. Fatigue, maybe, playing tricks on your ears in the quiet room. You try to rationalize it, holding the radio at arm's length, observing the dust motes dancing in the weak light, seeking a mundane explanation. Yet a different kind of curiosity begins to stir, sharper than before. You find yourself reaching for a notebook, a pen, the impulse not just to listen, but to record, to transcribe the chaos, hoping to impose order, to find a pattern that proves it's all just random noise. As you listen, closer now, the air around the radio seems to thicken. There's a faint metallic tang, like ozone after lightning, or perhaps just old dust heated by vacuum tubes. The static isn't just sound. It's a pressure that settles in the air, against your skin, a subtle weight that wasn't there before. When you turn the radio off, the ensuing silence feels different. Not empty, but deep and waiting, as if the air itself has been changed by what it contained. The broadcasts grow bolder, or perhaps you are simply growing more attuned. They start to mention locations, streets, landmarks, even room numbers that feel uncomfortably close. Events, too, are referenced, things that seem impossible for a random radio signal to know. Your notes fill with half-caught phrases and question marks. Doubt gnaws at the edges of your mind, eroding the solid ground of reality. How could a radio know that? The confusion is intense, a dizzying struggle to reconcile the impossible broadcasts with the world you thought you knew. The static motif deepens, evolving from mere interference into something more sinister. Listen closely during a surge, and you can almost discern distorted voices buried within the hiss and crackle, a chorus of murmuring beneath the primary broadcast. It's not just noise anymore. It feels like presence. Then comes the moment that fractures something fundamental. A name is whispered, a place referenced, not just close, but something you had only thought about. A fleeting memory or a recent, private encounter. The radio's reach feels impossibly personal, turning curiosity into a chilling dread. You look at the radio, the simple, unassuming box, and wonder what dark current flows through its wires, connecting it not just to the airwaves, but to the hidden corners of your own mind. Could it truly know you? Dread settles in your gut, a cold knot tightening with each breath. The fleeting suspicion, the nervous curiosity has evaporated. It is replaced by a certainty so heavy, it feels like a physical weight pressing down. The radio, sitting innocently on the table, spoke a name moments ago. A name, you know. It described a circumstance, a brief, chilling phrase that made no sense at the time, lost in the crackle and hiss. Then the silence returned, leaving you questioning your own ears. But the world outside does not question. Hours later, Perhaps only minutes. A siren wails in the distance, growing closer. Your phone buzzes. A local news alert flashes across the screen. Or a neighbor knocks frantically, face pale. The event described by the static-laced voice on the radio is unfolding, exactly, terrifyingly, as predicted. The specific individual, the impossible detail, confirmed. The shock is immediate, visceral. Your hands tremble. The air feels thin, difficult to draw into your lungs. Doubt is a luxury you can no longer afford. This isn't coincidence, not delusion. This is something else. Something that looks through the veil of the world and speaks its cruelties aloud. Fear washes over you, profound and suffocating. But intertwined with it is a frantic, burning obsession. You must understand. What is this radio? How does it know? Who built it? The static, once an intermittent nuisance, is now a constant presence. It's a low, persistent hum that seems to thrum not just from the speaker, but from the very walls, the air around you. It interferes with every other electronic device. Lights flicker. The television screen swims with snowy interference. Your phone signal drops to nothing when you are near the radio. It feels like the static is reaching out, a subtle, insistent touch against your thoughts, clouding your concentration with its endless, meaningless noise. Every shadow seems deeper, every creak of the house a deliberate sound. You are acutely aware of being alone, and the chilling possibility that you are no longer unheard. Driven by the desperate need for answers, you begin to search. You examine the radio's casing, its ancient knobs. You look for manufacturer marks, serial numbers, anything that might give a clue to its origin. You handle it carefully, feeling the cold metal and aged plastic, now imbued with a sinister energy. Tucked deep inside the battery compartment, or perhaps wedged behind the speaker grill, your fingers brush against something unexpected. A small, brittle piece of paper, folded multiple times, its edges yellowed and frayed. It feels old, brittle, like something forgotten and deliberately hidden. This is the artifact. Unfolding it reveals faded ink, spidery handwriting almost illegible in places. It's a fragment, perhaps from a journal or a note, filled with cryptic phrases. The frequency aligns, a door opens, payment for the whispers, the binding holds, not built, but found. It watches through the noise. The words are disjointed, hinting at madness or a terrible understanding beyond human comprehension. It speaks of the radio not as a simple device, but something connected, something requiring a price, something that exists on multiple planes at once. Not built, but found. The ambiguous line hangs in the air, suggesting an origin far older and more disturbing than any inventor's workshop. It hints at a power that predates technology, using the radio as a conduit for purposes utterly alien and malevolent. The static seems to intensify, a low growl accompanying the dawning horror of the artifact's implications. The broadcasts do not cease. They amplify. The quiet hum swells, no longer background noise, but a persistent presence, filling the spaces between heartbeats. The predictions claw their way from vague foreboding into brutal specifics. They speak of minor falls in the stairwell, of forgotten medications, of stalled cars just out of sight. Then the tone shifts again, dipping into something lower, colder. It names places you know, streets you walk, and whispers possibilities for those who live there. Not just misfortune now, but breaks, stops, endings. The words coil around your own thoughts, suggesting delicate threads of connection, hinting that perhaps, just perhaps, these ripples lead back to you. A chilling certainty takes root. This must be stopped. The need is primal, overwhelming. You reach for the dial, intending to twist it hard, to silence the voice, to choke the static into oblivion. But the knob is strangely stiff, unresponsive. You grip it tighter, fingers straining, but it refuses to turn. You try the power cord, tracing it back to the wall, intending to yank it free. Your fingers close around the thick rubber, but it feels welded in place, immovable. You pull, you strain, muscles burning, but the cord does not budge. It is as if the radio is rooted, anchored by unseen weight, refusing to release its hold. A strange calmness settles over you then, a compelled passivity that clashes violently with the frantic energy coursing through your limbs. Your hand trembles, frozen on the unresponsive dial. The static itself changes. It doesn't just sound different, it looks different. Patterns form and dissolve in the visual distortion, fleeting images flickering within the noise. Sometimes they resemble faces, indistinct skeletal, peering out from the chaos. Other times, they are places, familiar rooms warped into impossible angles. And the static bleeds. It leaks into the edges of your vision, even when the radio is supposedly off, a shimmering heat haze on the wall, a distortion in the reflection of the window. The air carries a faint, acrid smell, like ozone and burnt dust, whenever the interference thickens. You hear the phantom whispers of broadcasts in the quiet of the night. When logic insists, the machine is silent. Sleep becomes a forgotten luxury, replaced by a gnawing paranoia that hollows your eyes. Trust erodes like sandstone in a storm. Every kind glance feels like a veiled threat, every closed door a conspiracy. You start to question if the sounds are real, if the faces are real, if you are real. Then comes a broadcast that is different still. A single phrase delivered with unnerving clarity. The window is the door. The lock is the key. It hangs in the air, nonsensical, contradictory. Is it a prediction, a riddle, or is it a taunt? A deliberate twist of meaning suggesting the radio delights in your confusion, that it manipulates not just events, but fundamental truths. Perhaps it reveals a crack in the world itself, a place where opposites hold equal sway and the rules are fluid, dangerous. The static crackles, surrounding the words like a distorted halo, and for a moment, the room seems to tilt, perspective blurring, as if seen through a warped lens. Time feels sluggish, then races forward, skipping beats, leaving you momentarily disoriented, unsure if minutes or hours have passed in the space of a single breath. You are trapped with a machine that cannot be silenced, spewing prophecies and paradoxes, blurring the edges of everything you thought you knew. Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. The house breathes around you, a slow inhale and exhale of settling wood and aged dust. It is quiet, too quiet for its size, each corner holding shadows that seem thicker than they should be. You moved here for the solitude, for the silence that promises a kind of peace the city could not offer. But the silence here is different. It is watchful, expectant. In the study, tucked away on a high shelf, Amidst forgotten books and yellowed papers sits the radio. It is old, Bakelite casing, scarred and faded. Dial stuck somewhere near the end of the AM band. You didn't notice it at first. Just another relic of lives lived before yours in these walls. But then one evening, when the wind was rattling the window panes and the house seemed to sigh a little louder than usual, it happened. The static. It wasn't the soft hiss of an empty frequency. It was a sharp, almost deliberate crackle, followed by a low, resonant hum. You turn your head, searching for the source, your breath catching. The radio is on. The dial hasn't moved. The power cord is unplugged, yet the speaker is alive with that peculiar noise. A sudden, irrational chill prickles your skin, not from the draft under the door, but from something that feels impossibly close. You tell yourself it is faulty wiring, a phantom charge, anything but what your gut whispers. This old box was woken, and it is calling out. A low-frequency pulse seems to vibrate in the floorboards beneath your feet, a tremor that feels less like the house shifting and more like a deep, unheard signal beginning. The air in the study grows perceptibly colder, dense and heavy, as if something vast and unseen has just stepped into the room with you. You stare at the radio, the static a low growl now, and the quiet house around you seems to lean in, listening. The static deepens the next night, a texture more than a sound. It fills the room like a fine mist, clinging to the edges of your hearing. It is no longer random noise. There is a pattern, a rhythm to the pops and hisses, like code being tapped out in an impossible language. You approach the radio cautiously, the old wood cool beneath your fingertips. The dial remains fixed. The cord still lies limp beside the outlet, yet the sound emanates from the speaker with startling clarity. As you hover closer, you catch something else within the static, a faint, tinny music, ancient and discordant, like a broken music box playing from a great distance. It warps and dissolves back into the hiss, leaving only the unsettling rhythm behind. You try to rationalize it again, searching for loose wires, checking other electronics, but everything is silent, normal, except for this one peculiar box. Doubt gnaws at you, a corrosive acid eating away at your certainty of the mundane world. Was it a neighbor's radio bleeding through? Impossible. The house is too isolated. Was it the house itself, settling, groaning? This sound is too distinct, too present. A wave of profound unease washes over you, twisting your stomach into knots. You feel a strange compulsion, an urge to touch the dial, to see if it will respond. As your fingers hover above the plastic, the static seems to swell in anticipation, the rhythm quickening to a frantic pulse. A sharp, metallic tang fills the air, like old blood and ozone, making your head ache. You pull your hand back, startled, the strange smell lingering. Was that music real? Or was it something planted in your mind, a seed of confusion meant to take root? The static settles back into its rhythmic tapping, and the air thrums with a tension that makes the small hairs on your arms stand on end. The rhythm of the static becomes a constant companion, a silent pulse beneath your days and nights. It is quieter when the radio is off, a phantom echo in your ears, but you know it is there, waiting. Now, when the radio sparks to life, the static doesn't just crackle, it whispers. Faint, indistinct voices woven into the noise, like conversations held underwater. You strain to hear, leaning closer, your eyes tracing the pattern of the Bakelite casing, searching for a hidden switch, a logical explanation. Your sleep is fractured, haunted by dreams of endless frequencies and faceless voices. The obsession consumes you. You spend hours researching old radios, electrical interference, local history, desperate to find a connection, a reason. But nothing fits. The whispers grow bolder, sometimes sounding like a crowded room, sometimes like a single voice, low and guttural. They never form recognizable words, just a stream of unsettling sound that feels directed at you, into you. As you listen one evening, bent close to the speaker, the whispers seem to focus, coalescing into a sound you almost recognize. Not a word, but a resonance, a name maybe, or a forgotten place. A key motif begins to surface. Not a physical key, but the idea of one, of something locked away, something hidden that this static is trying to unlock. The air around the radio grows heavy again, thick with a pressure that pushes against your eardrums. You feel a prickling sensation on your neck, the undeniable feeling of being watched, not by someone outside, but by something from the static itself. A chilling thought takes root. It isn't broadcasting to me, it's broadcasting through me. The lines between the house and the radio blur. The static isn't confined to the speaker anymore. It seems to emanate from the walls, the floorboards, the very air itself. Lights flicker spontaneously, regardless of whether the radio is on or off, their rhythm mirroring the pulsing static. Objects in the room vibrate faintly, a glass on the table, a picture frame on the wall, humming with an unheard frequency. Your reflection in the dusty mirror above the fireplace seems momentarily distorted, the edges of your face rippling like water disturbed by a stone, only to snap back into place when you blink. It is harder to distinguish between waking and dreaming. The whispers from the static seep into your thoughts, sometimes echoing your own anxieties, sometimes planting new, unsettling ideas. You find yourself talking to the radio, arguing with the noise, pleading for silence. Paranoia becomes a tight cloak wrapped around you. Every creak of the house, every distant sound feels amplified, significant, part of the radio's expanding influence. You try leaving, driving away, but the phantom static follows. A high-pitched whine in your ears, a pressure behind your eyes. You always return. The house is part of it now, a vessel for the signal. A physical manifestation of the static appears, not sound, but a visual distortion in your peripheral vision. A shimmering heat haze that isn't hot, isn't air. It seems to pulse with the same rhythm as the radio's hum. The idea of a key returns, not to a physical door, but to a locked part of your own mind. What is the static trying to reveal? What memory is it trying to unlock? The air grows impossibly cold again, a bone-deep chill that no fire can dispel, centered entirely around the now silent radio. You are trapped within the broadcast, and it feels less like a signal coming from somewhere else, and more like a disease spreading through the very fabric of your reality. Was it always here, waiting for me to tune in? The final frequency hits like a physical blow. It is no longer static. It is a deafening roar, a white-hot noise that assaults every nerve ending. The air is thick with it, vibrating with an unbearable intensity. The room itself seems to buckle. Walls shimmer and waver. Furniture trembles violently. The floor feels unstable beneath your feet. Light distorts wildly, bulbs flaring and dying, casting impossible shadows that twist and writhe. The noise is no longer just sound. It is a presence, overwhelming, inescapable. Within the roar, The whispers are no longer indistinct. They are clear, urgent, seeming to speak directly into your skull, answering thoughts you haven't even fully formed. They tell of endings, of dissolution, of something vast and devastating that is already here, already in you. Your own fate feels intertwined with the broadcast, reflected in the terrifying finality of the sound. You feel yourself fragmenting, your identity dissolving into the sheer terror and the overwhelming static. You are no longer listening to the radio. You are the static, a receiver overwhelmed by the signal. In the peak of this sonic assault, a hidden message manifests, not in words, but as a stark, vivid image burning behind your eyes, a scene from your childhood. Long buried, a moment of fear and abandonment, directly connected to the feeling of being unseen, unheard. It is the key, unlocking not a mystery of the house, but a wound within yourself. Driven to the absolute edge, with reality crumbling around you, you attempt a final, desperate act of defiance. Not flight, not repair, but refusal. You scream into the noise, a guttural cry against the overwhelming signal, refusing to listen, refusing to become it, attempting to flood the frequency with your own broken sound. The air is impossibly heavy, impossibly cold, crushing down, and the whispers seem to laugh, mocking your defiance. The breakdown of reality accelerates, and the static is now the only thing you perceive. The silence that follows is not peace. It is an absence, a void left where the crushing sound had been. The room is still, the objects no longer vibrating, the walls no longer rippling. The radio is silent, inert, a simple piece of electronics on a shelf. But the static remains, a faint echo in your ears, a phantom limb of noise. You are changed. The terror has receded, leaving behind a profound exhaustion, a hollow space where your certainties used to be. The world outside the house feels distant, unreal. The memory unearthed by the final frequency is raw, exposed, a root pulled violently from the dark earth of your past. It doesn't explain everything, but it anchors the horror, makes it deeply, terrifyingly personal. The recurring motif of the static is not gone. It has simply retreated inward, a low hum in the bones, a constant pressure behind the eyes. You look at the radio, just an old box now, and you know it is more. It is a scar on reality, a doorway that was opened and perhaps cannot be closed. The unanswered questions linger in the quiet air, heavy and dense. What was the broadcast? Who was it for? And was the key meant to unlock a memory or to lock something else in? You are left with the residue, the chilling knowledge that the static heard you, knew you, and maybe, just maybe, it is still listening. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet.